But also, quite a few techies migrate into the project management area, don't they? Now, is that a mistake? Because they have a certain set way of doing things, and they kind of like routine, don't they? Particularly programmers, for example. So that perhaps that mindset gets then communicated into a wider environment.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that there isn't better defined, more senior career paths for technical staff. I've seen a lot of very good technical people kind of get pushed into project management and program management, and perhaps they're not best at doing it. It would be good if there were avenues open to technical staff who can advance on a technical route, and get rewarded for doing that. I wouldn't like to make any sweeping generalisations. I don't think there is any particular rule over people generally. It depends upon the individuals. But the skills required to be a good project and program manager are quite different from the skills necessary to be a technical expert and a technical architect.
That's where I was going. Although people's do change career paths,
of course they do.
I think, but where I've seen very successful transitions from IT into project or program management is where people have been prepared to utilise their specialism, but not make that the be-all and end-all. So where people can say, actually, now I'm business focused, I'm looking at what this project will contribute to the business overall, rather than, oh, this is cutting edge, this will be fun. Where it's gone wrong is where they've kept their specialism in their head. When the project hits trouble, running a bit late, they'll roll up their sleeves and get on with it because they can do it. They know how it should be done. And therefore they lose that objectivity and the overall, I've got to take this project through its full life cycle. I've got to lead. I've got to take direction. I've got to show people what we're trying to create. So it's a very different mindset. And some people do have it within them and can make that transition very successfully. But those that don't are the ones that keep that, actually, my specialism is what makes me special. So therefore, I must make it all about this. I mean, initially it works well because I think team members will follow that. Oh, the guy knows what he's doing. I'm comfortable with him being the project manager. Technically, he knows what he's doing. That's great. But when the project starts to actually get towards the latter stages, when you've actually got to get that handover and the embedding and the buy-in, it makes it a lot more difficult.
BCS do quite a few qualifications in this area, so we're ahead of the curve here. But I just wonder if there's a tendency to think as well that project management, all it takes really to be a project manager is just a good degree of organisation. And if we've got that, we just move on from there.
I think there's a couple of challenges. I sort of came into this space from being in operations management. And so by tradition, I'm not a sort of traditional technically trained project manager. When I was in that space, I had responsibility for delivering some business change projects, which were predominantly IT. And the only reason the project manager got into my office and got past my gatekeeper was because they could actually talk to me in a language other than geeky project management. They could talk to me about my business problems. And I think that starts to introduce some interesting aspects into this conversation, because when I look to create successful project teams, I will obviously look for some technical competence in the subject matter of project management or the subject matter of program management, because they're different skills and competencies. But actually what I'll also look for is some personality styles, some fundamental capabilities that the individual brings. Because when I look at complex programs of change, for example, it's as different as planners and politicians. We can have some skill sets and some people who are very good at the detail of planning. But actually, an awful lot of what a program manager will do is manage politics. And trying to get a planner or someone who's very good because of the way they're wired, not necessarily because of their training, but just who they are.
Yes.
Trying to get someone who's very good at detail, a completer finisher, at nailing all of the T's and the I's, and getting them to do politics is really, really tough. And equally the other way around. And so there's a guy called Jim Collins, a business author, and he talks about get the right people on the bus. He talks about get the right people on your team with the right capabilities, personalities and skills, actually before you decide where the bus is going. And I think often in this space around coursework and around skilling and around people who were once, a marketing person becoming a project manager, we can become too focused on actually training in the technical skills, whereas actually from a personality, from who I am, I'm just fundamentally not equipped to do that role. And I will always be unhappy, and therefore I probably won't be very successful.
So who's responsible for putting those teams together? Would that be the programme level person?
I think it can. I think project managers can. I think sometimes you get project managers who, where they show excellence is when they recognise some of the points you're making, and they hire their weaknesses at the team level.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I know what I'm very bad at. I'm not a great details-focused person. Administratively, I'm completely unhinged. So as long as I hire somebody who's very organised, configuration manager, that's what I'm looking for.
Right.
You know, and I think that it's emotional intelligence. It's you know, back to the analysing your own personality and understanding yourself well enough to know that I am a square peg and I won't fit in that round hole, but there's somebody over here who will. Those are the skills. It's the people skills. I'm very good at stakeholder engagement, but I'm not very good at detailed planning. Let's make sure I get somebody with the technical planning skills. I can do the people, or vice versa.
That level of self-awareness, though, and analysis, it seems to be going into the intuitive rather than the... It depends on the people, doesn't it?
It does, but
not on the process.
There are very structured ways that you can address those sort of challenges. And I come back to the people process technology analogy that Dave used earlier. I think those three elements share the answer between them. That the people piece is actually about understanding. It's using tools like emotional intelligence to understand actually what sort of people do I want in these different roles, and how do I get the right people. The process piece then is about, I do need consistency. The best way to manage complexity is to have some formal structured approaches to dealing with complexity. So I'm going to put some process and some structure in place that actually makes it easier to manage this starburst of change that's happening all around me. And then actually I need some enablers. I need some things that give me leverage in terms of controlling what's happening in my project program ecosystem. And often technology can be an enabler, but it is only an enabler. It's not the be-all and end-all. And it's when you bring the balance of those three things together, it all sounds very gooey and holistic, but in reality, the successful projects and programs that I've seen have almost entirely been predicated on being able to build that balanced approach between getting some really good people on the bus, getting some structure, because often as people, we don't like discipline and structure and having to behave in a structured, coordinated way. So getting a pragmatic level of structure that works, and then creating visibility, creating collaboration with some smart technologies. And it's only when you put those things together that you start to get any good answers out. And I think more often than not, we tend to focus on one of those elements to the detriment of the others.
I think there's been a lot of, I've got the structure, I've got the qualification. And I think that's, for me, that's part of the job, but it's not the only part. But I do believe passionately that structure is a very good place to start, because it's almost the base of the pyramid. If you, whatever structured process you want to run, as long as you can agree on that, then you can make sure that you can fit the people into that, because you can understand, look, these are the things we need to do. This is the general order in which we need to get it done. Now let's concentrate on the finessing of that, sometimes the political messages, sometimes the engagement level. But if you don't have that base of the pyramid first, I think it's very hard to get people to perform effectively, because I think program managers, particularly these days, I think we're into the market of talent management, because we're bringing in people with a lot of special talents, and talent management is a very difficult job. You've got to play to those people's strengths, and I think if you play to those people's strengths with no structure underpinning that, then they go off in all sorts of different directions.
I think that's true at every level, and one kind of little injection of reality I think we need to make is many project managers who'll be watching this will be saying to themselves, well, I have no control over who gets on my bus. There's not many projects that I run or I've been involved in where actually the project manager has very much choice about the resources and the people that he has to work with. So I think a lot of the success around project management, going back to your first question, is to do with making the most of what you have on your team, getting people to play to their strengths, understanding where there are weaknesses, and taking that into account rather than just sticking to this plan that was set right at the beginning and saying it said we were going to have all these resources and all these people, and it was based on these assumptions around fantastic skill sets. And here we are, 3 months into the project, I'm 20% under-resourced, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then you need to change the way that you're managing things and look at your plan again.
Yes.